Good morning, Greg here, burner both ends, burner on the front end of May 17th, 2018. It is 3:41 a.m. Pacific, and I'm excited. I'm getting on a plane in a couple hours to fly to New York. My dad's flying up from South Carolina, and my brother's in Connecticut, so we're meeting in New York City to celebrate my dad's 75th birthday. He turned 75 this year. Born and raised in New York City, and so we're taking him back. This is what he wanted, so I'm super psyched for an awesome weekend in New York City. And so today's topic are the top 10 awesome things about my dad, in my opinion. So my dad did an outstanding job as far as I'm concerned as being the father of two boys, now both grown men with families of their own. We both actually have two girls. And so here are my top 10 awesome things that he did. So, and this is in the order I thought of them, and it's kind of cool the way the order progresses. So number one, inspired me to cook. I have lots of childhood memories of my dad and I cooking, dinners, barbecue, breakfast, desserts, all kinds of things. So I love to cook now. I think that's a big piece to that. Actually, I'm rather obsessed with cooking. So number two, he introduced me to sports, and he was always present and participating in the practices and the games, whether it was official team practice or just throwing the ball out in front of the house with me. And I just have lots of memories of whatever season it was, I was playing with that ball out in front. I was especially good at baseball, and so there were a lot of trips to the local baseball park to catch some fly balls, do some batting practice. And there was one time I do remember he chipped a bone off my ankle. He hit a ball back at me and chipped a bone off my ankle. So pretty awesome. And number three, he bought me my first snare drum and practice pads. He found my first drum teacher, a guy named Ralph Pace. And then he proceeded to buy me two drum sets, both from a store called Sam Ash. I think Sam Ash is still in business, but this is a Northeast music store, kind of like a guitar center. And both drum sets, so the first was a Tama, the second was a gorgeous Premier Signia maple shells. Oh, I love it. Actually, it's right behind me, the Premier. You can see that white bass drum back there, right behind me. Still have that drum set, put that drum set to a lot of use. I was in bands for many years and a lot of gigs with those drums. Those beautiful white Premier Signia drum set. Number four, he came home with an Amiga computer. You might have to look that one up. That's old school. It didn't have a hard drive. It booted everything off floppies, 3.5-inch floppies, 1.44 megabytes. Oh, our word processor was 6 discs. I remember that. Interesting. And so you were constantly popping discs in and out to load a new program. It's kind of an interesting computer. And then number five, he came home with a VCR, and that had slow motion functionality to it. And I remember the very first video that we ever rented from the video store, which probably don't exist anymore, was the Karate Kid. And you had to have the computer on, the TV on channel 3 for some reason, and it took us a while to set it up. But yeah, the Karate Kid. Number six, he brought my brother and myself to the YMCA to work out. He had an office in White Plains, and so there was a Y there. And so that was my first experience in a locker room setting with other men, seeing what you see there. Remember that as a kid. And we worked out, lifted weights, nautilus, swam, basketball, racquetball. We played a lot of racquetball. I remember that. I was never that good. I always got beat, but racquetball at the Y. And then after the Y, after the workout, number seven, he'd take us to Nikki's Pizza on Mamaroneck Avenue in White Plains to get a slice of what I would say the best pizza in the world. It's delicious. And he would put extra pepperoni and cheese on top just because it's so delicious. And I always remember he had a special oven that I'd never seen at any other pizza place, and it had a French door in the middle. Where else would you put a French door? It had a French door that opened, and then it had several layers and it rotated. It was pretty cool. But I just remember the pizza being fantastic, and my dad would always make a comment yeah, you made that workout back in that first bite, something like that. That's not a really good impression of my dad. That's not what he sounds like, but for some reason that's what's coming out this morning. All right, and that pizza. I love that pizza. Pizza was a big part of growing up in Westchester County, and Nikki's was just the best. All right, number 8. He had a direct mail business, and there was an opportunity to make money to make money as a kid. I'm having a hard time talking this morning. To make money stuffing envelopes with advertisements, little folded advertisements, and we would get a penny for every envelope we stuffed. And we would try to figure out how can we stuff like as many as possible. And then of course you have to use like a sponge and close the envelopes. So that was pretty cool. There was a time where we had a basketball hoop installed, and I remember, I don't know all the details because I was, a young teenager, but I remember it was a big deal. We had to get cement poured, and but I remember how awesome that was when when we finally had a basketball hoop installed. Now we can shoot hoops. We shot hoops quite a lot, so that was really cool. And for some reason, I think that was a very big deal for my dad to get that accomplished. I'm not sure why, but I just think because it was not a straightforward kind of thing to do. But that was awesome that he got that done. I think it cost a good amount of money too. And then number 10, and this is like really cool that I thought of this one last. He helped me buy my first and component stereo from Sam Ash. So for those that don't remember, back in the day, let's see, so this would be, is it 8th grade? So this is like the late 80s, early 90s, I want to say. Yeah, late 80s, early 90s, 89 or 90. So stereos typically came like a good stereo came in components, right? So you'd buy the receiver, which is usually like 100 watts of power, and this is what, had all the settings for, records and tapes. And at this time, CDs was a big deal. Maybe you had a Laserdisc setting on it. Remember Laserdiscs? And always like the aux in was some weird thing. And typically the big thing at this point was getting into some surround sound. That was like the big deal. I think it was a little bit, maybe the super high-end systems had some Dolby like 5.1. I'd have to look it up, but at this time it was just a little bit of surround sound. And at the time, Sam Ash had a section in their store where they sold these components, right? And so you'd buy the receiver, you'd buy the CD player, usually it was like a 5-disc carousel, and then you'd buy like a dual tape deck that had like high-speed dubbing, so you could dub tapes. And the cool thing was making a mix on a tape with different CDs and different other tapes, right? And so, and I remember I'd make these mixes where the name of the mix, right, whatever side of the cassette it was, the first and last song on that side, I'd make some name with those song titles. And so we went to Sam Ash, and I remember the room that had the components in it was like the coolest room. It was like dark and like all these dudes hanging out with long hair. And Sam Ash, if I remember correctly, and I might be making this up, but this is what's in my mind's eye, is they all had like their badges of their employment looked like backstage passes. So it was almost like you're backstage at a concert. It was really cool. And all these dudes, they knew all the stuff about these pieces of equipment. And you could listen to CDs beforehand to see how awesome the speakers sound. And let me see if I can remember what I bought. It was a Kenwood receiver. Actually, I still have it. And freaky thing is, it was in storage for a while, so I've had this thing since the 8th grade, since like, let's say 1990. I took it out on our last move, plugged it in, and it worked. Doesn't quite work right now, but Kenwood receiver. And then Advent bookshelf speakers. I think it was a Sony 5-disc carousel, and the dual tape deck I think was also Kenwood. And the whole thing was you'd go there and you'd look at all the components, and then my dad was always into haggling on the price, and I remember him teaching me that stuff. And and I remember buying the stereo and going back home and setting it up, and it always took a while to set up because you gotta get all the components and find a place for it, run the speakers, run the speaker wire. And the very first CD I bought was Van Halen for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. And I remember that's all I had. That was back in the day. But, I had a couple tapes, but nothing I really wanted to listen to. And so I remember listening to that Van Halen CD too many times and getting kind of sick of it. But yeah, so he helped me buy that. I think I bought it with my own money, but I'm not sure. And then I was thinking about now what do I do for music? So of course I have at my computer I have some kind of decent like Logitech pair of speakers and a subwoofer, which is reasonable. For my home studio, I do have a set of high-end studio monitors by Genelec, which I really like. But those aren't for every day. Those are just very special for doing some drum mixing and mastering. But what I do mostly is just from my phone to this Unz little Bluetooth speaker. I just carry it around the house. That's what I have now. So, like orders of magnitude different than this enormous component stereo system that was very expensive and probably cost like $1,000, you know, with every piece. And now I have a $40 little Bluetooth thing that I carry around that's plenty loud and has actually great sound. I'm very impressed with this little device. So anyway, so those are the top 10 things my dad, awesome things my dad did. I'm so psyched to go see him. It's cool to have these memories. Component stereo, hi-fi, high fidelity. Anyway, it's early. I think that's it for the post. So I hope that you maybe that you can think about your folks and how they inspired you in your life, and you can make your own top 10 list. I'll get to one on my mom at some point. It just going to see my dad really made me think about all the great things he did for me as a kid, and we have a really good relationship now, and I'm just really, really honored that my dad is my dad and that we're gonna go spend some time together. So y'all have a great day. Subscribe, comment below, ask me if there's, ask me questions, ask me if there's anything I can do to help. Tell me about your journey. Let's see, there are lots of links down below, motivational videos. There are some beats in the background. G Money, my alter ego, I write beats, so if you dig the beats, go check them out. You can listen to them on SoundCloud. And that'll do it. So my next post will be from New York. Y'all have a great one.